All good. Hey guys, it's Jessie from Plaid, and welcome to Let's Paint Live, our monthly painting party where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. Today we're painting this cute little cupcake painting just in time for Valentine's Day. I was just telling our friends on TikTok that it's great for a Valentine's night in or to paint for your significant other. It's a really super simple, easy painting we'll be doing tonight. And as always, we'll be using our FolkArt paints. So we're using our Let's Paint Live kit. It comes with 24 colors, and it also includes our brush set. So if you joined us before, if you plan on joining again, it's a really great value because you can use that paint set to paint every single month with us. So every month, on the first Thursday of every month, we go live teaching you a super simple and easy and fun painting, and we always use that paint set. So check out plaidonline.com, check out that set, and you can paint along with us. So I'm going to go over the supplies we have. If you guys have any questions at all, we have Harrison in the chat here tonight. So please ask them. Let us know where you're painting from. Let us know if you're painting along. If you have fun plans for Valentine's Day, we would just love to hear from you. So go ahead and pop those in the chat, and Harrison will relay them to me. So I have a little canvas here. It's 7 by 7. So that's the size I'm using tonight, but any square canvas will work. If it's smaller or bigger, that's okay. You're just going to want to make your cupcake the proportion to your canvas, but mine is 7 by 7. Like I said, we're using the Let's Paint Live kit, and specifically the colors I have are French Blue, Dutch Aqua, Baby Pink, Berry Wine, and then Wicker White. So if you don't have these exact colors at home, that is totally fine. Feel free to mix colors you have or use whatever you have that's similar or paint your own colored cupcake. It could be anything you want it to be, but just make sure you're painting along with us. I've also got our brush set. So tonight the brushes I'll be using mostly is a 1/2 inch flat brush, or just a small flat, anything similar is fine. A liner brush, so this is a number 3 round, so just kind of a thin liner brush. And then a large round brush, so this is a number 12 round. So again, anything similar to this is fine, but these are the ones I'll be using tonight. And then I've got some palette paper. This is what I like to put my paint on. I've got some paper towels and some water to clean my brushes. And then I've also got a hair dryer. So we'll be drying some steps in between to make sure we can get our painting done in just about an hour. So grab a fan, grab your hair dryer, or watch later and pause as you go, whatever works best for you. So Harrison, unless there's any questions or comments, we can go ahead and get started.
You're good to go.
Okay, cool. So the first colors I'm going to put on my palette is Baby Pink and some of my French Blue. I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch flat brush, and I'm going to pick up some Baby Pink, and I'm going to start in the top left. And I'm going to do sort of a slip slap motion. And what I mean by that is I'm kind of going like left and right, left and right. And the reason we're not just, brushing it out and making it nice and smooth and even is because we're going to start blending that French Blue into it as well to get kind of that pretty purple color you see here. So slip slap, kind of making like X motions. And then I can pick up a little bit of that French Blue and start blending it in. And you see how pretty it looks with that pink? It just starts turning into that pretty sort of periwinkle color. And you can put as much or as little of that as you want, but I'm just going to kind of add it in as I go, and we're going to cover the whole canvas with that. A little bit of blue kind of goes a long way, so you don't need quite as much of the blue to get a really nice purpley color. Get right up to the edge there. Just blending that in. Try not to think about it too much. I like kind of that like loose, blended brush strokey look. That's what we're going for tonight. So if you think too much about it, it's going to be too perfect. And that's not what we're going for. You can do this painting on canvas. I'm using a canvas panel tonight. You can use paper, whatever you've got at home. Just go ahead and paint along with us. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly what we're using. It's just supposed to be fun. So this painting can be done in your journal, whatever it is that you like to paint on, you can go ahead and participate.
Jessie, what kind of cupcake is that?
You know, when I was painting it, I was thinking a red velvet cupcake.
Mm,
It's kind of what I was going for.
looks
That
good.
berry wine is a perfect red velvet color.
I think I heard somewhere that red velvet is just like it's just red chocolate.
Kind of, yeah.
Is that like a dirty secret?
It's like, I don't know if it started out that way, but that's how most people make it now. It's basically just chocolate cake with like red food coloring in it.
Wow.
But I want to say that it started with like something that's like naturally red, but I don't know the history of red velvet. I wish I did.
Don't meet your heroes, kids.
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm so sorry. It's still good.
Yeah, delicious.
Okay. All right, so I've got all of my background painted in, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my hair dryer so we can get that dry, and so we can start on our cupcake. Make sure it's dried to the touch so we don't smear our paint around when we start painting our cupcake, but it feels good to me. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to sort of, like I call it sketch in the shape of our cupcake. We're not using a pattern tonight. We're just going to go ahead and paint the shape ourselves because we can do it with simple shapes. But I'm going to kind of water down some paint. You can use a pencil or some chalk if you have that at home. But I'm going to water down some paint. We're just going to kind of roughly sketch out where the cupcake's going to be. So I'm going to grab some berry wine. Just need a little bit for this part. And then I'm going to water it down with my small liner brush, my number 3 round, to get sort of like an inky consistency. And I wouldn't typically recommend watering down your FolkArt paints unless you're doing a wash or something like that, just because it dilutes the pigment and we want our paint to be really, you know, full coverage and thick and creamy. But for this, we're kind of just, like I said, we're doing a little bit of a sketching technique. So you don't want it to be super thick because you want to be able to paint over it really easily. So you want nice, thin paint. So I'm watering it down. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to mark where our cupcake hits the bottom of our canvas. So like I said, if you're painting a different size canvas, you want to take that into consideration. For the 7x7, it's about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. That's just where it lands. So I'm going to kind of just guesstimate and mark it there. I'm going to mark a little line there so I kind of know where my cupcake ends. And then I kind of like to look at the sides as reference so I can make sure I've got my cupcake proportioned and centered on my canvas where I want it to be. If you want yours to the side, that's totally fine. If you have a big canvas and you want it in the corner, it's whatever you want. But my cupcake tonight is centered, so this is how I'm going to do it. So we have it about 3 fingers from the left side. So I'll mark that with a little line. And then I would say about 3 fingers from the right side. About 3 fingers from there. So I'm going to mark that too. So that is about where my cupcake is going to land on my canvas. So you can see there, just like a little bit of it's almost like connect the dots now. So for the shape of the bottom of the cupcake, we have this nice rounded shape, and then it kind of goes outwards and up. It kind of tapers down. So we want it to go almost like a V shape. So we're going to start here. We're going to pull down, going towards the middle a little bit on the left, and we want it to be as symmetrical as possible. So that's how cupcakes look, and then go down a little bit on the right. And you see if my paint's really thin, if you get, your line too far to the right, you want to move it, you can go back over with some baby pink and cover that up really easily. That's why we thin down our paint. And now for the bottom, I'm going to do a nice curved bottom. And that is the base of our cupcake. And then for the top part, we want to make sure we match that curve. So just to get the proportions right, it's not going to be flat here because the bottom is already curved. So we're looking at something that's round. So this curve is really going to match the angle of this curve. So that is going to be the top of the cupcake liner. And then just for fun, we can go ahead and paint in where the cupcake would be. We're going to kind of go behind the frosting and it should look like a cup. If you guys have painted, you know, just a cup before, it's something that is really, you know, you paint like cones when you're starting out, learning simple shapes and things like that. It's very similar to that. So that's the shape we're starting with here. Okay. So that said, we can go ahead and start painting the paper cup portion of our cupcake. So I've got my baby pink and my berry wine on the canvas, and those are the two colors we're going to be primarily using for this. So I'm going to grab my flat brush. So this is a 1/2 inch flat, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix my baby pink with a tiny, tiny bit of berry wine just to kind of block in the color there. And then we're going to add some shading and highlights. See, I'm adding a very little bit. Shading and highlights to kind of give us what looks like that, you know, sort of grooves of the cupcake liner. What is that called? Cupcake liner, I guess? I don't know. So I'm just adding a little bit of berry wine at a time because I want to make sure it doesn't go too dark. And then I'm going to block in this color. So I have this kind of like mauve color here. And then we can add more light and dark as we paint in the details.
So I just looked that up. It's called a fluted baking cup.
Oh, I would not have guessed that. Okay, fluted baking cup. Well, we are going to make this baking cup look very fluted. So that is going to be accurate tonight.
All right. So much detail in that with the shading.
Yeah, it's actually a lot easier than it looks though. A few highlights and a few lowlights here and there, and you know, you can really make it look dimensional with just very little effort. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in these flutes, as we just learned, at the top here. And that's going to kind of tell us where the lines are going to go down, because of course you want it to look like it's, you know, like an expanded file, kind of like accordioned. So I'm going to grab some of my berry wine on my small flat brush, and they're going to be very small. We're going to follow this line that we made at the top and just paint like little C shapes, like a little scallop shape. And that's going to guide where our flutes are going to be to make it look more dimensional. Okay, so it should look something like that. And then we can kind of get an idea of where those lines are going to be. We want to make sure they're all accounted for so we have that nice flute shape. They should start, you know, in between each of those. So it's going to be like a cupped in. We just want to see where those lines are so we can start adding the values in. So I'm just kind of gently brushing in between those to kind of just mark them out so we can see where those are gonna land. Okay, so of course at the bottom of our cupcake liner it's going to be darker because that's where the shadow is, and you can see the shadow in between all of those little ridges there, and that's what makes it look so dimensional. So we can kind of start at the bottom. I kind of marked out where the flutes are going to be so I can tell where I really need my shadows to be. I'm just going to kind of put my brush there so I can start painting those in, and I know where they need to land. I'm just marking them based on where those little lines are that we just made. Just smushing my brush, it's nothing fancy. And now we can go ahead and darken in the bottom here with the berry wine and that's the small brush, and add in those shadows. I'm just following the line we made originally, and they're going to kind of go up where those lines are. We're going to kind of connect them to that bottom shadow. And it's okay if it starts blending in with the pink color you put in. That's okay. We want it to be blended so it all kind of runs together at the end. Just keep adding in that berry wine. That's going to be our what I call a darkest dark. Okay. So now we want them kind of start going up and meeting those lines that I made here. And if it's not perfect, don't worry. Don't stress it if your lines aren't perfectly straight, or you know, if you miss one, or it's a little bit, you know, imperfect. That is not the end of the world. I'm just trying to get in, you know, a good idea of where those lines will be, but if you skip one, it's fine. Once we add in all of the details and highlights and lowlights, you won't notice. Okay, so you can kind of see it's already starting to look, it has ridges. So once we add in all of these, you know, the darkest values, and the lightest values, and then these mid-tones, it's really going to start looking dimensional. So I'm going to add some more darkness to the sides, some shadow. And I'm still using the berry wine and my liner brush. Start darkening this bottom, and I'm making these a little bit thicker.
That looks real good.
Thank you.
I know it's not even close to being done, but
I know, see, like I said, very little effort and you can make it look pretty realistic. Okay, so we're gonna keep combining our baby pink and our berry wine, and that's gonna kind of be, you know, like a gradient effect upwards, and it's gonna start getting lighter until we get all the way to the top. Start pulling up. This is where the middle color is gonna come in. I'm just kind of painting on that line with this middle color that I just mixed and make it a little bit darker. And if you want to make it a little bit brighter, you can pull in some red, kind of make it pop a little bit. So this is cardinal red from the kit, but any red will work, any, you know, primary red you've got. I'm going to mix some of that in there too, and that's going to make it a little bit brighter. I'm just going to go back in those lines to kind of brighten them up a little, those lines we just did. And if you feel like you're kind of losing those thin lines you were getting, if there's a good chance you have too much paint in your brush. I've been mixing with my brush, and that's the problem I'm having now. I've got too much paint in the bristles, and so it's becoming hard to control. So a way you can solve that is just go ahead and refresh, rinse your brush off really well, get all the paint out of there, make sure you get all the water out. That's important because you don't want to water down your paint. Make sure your brush is nice and dry, and then pick up some new paint, and you can see you'll get those nice thin lines again, like we were getting in the beginning. Put some more red in there. Now we can start kind of blending it into the bottom, into those shadows that we made, making the lines thicker. You can see I'm kind of pulling them to the side, making them thicker as I go down. They're going to be kind of tapered. Add some more baby pink. So I have this nice light value of that, and we can kind of start painting this into the middle. So I've got kind of a lighter color than the one we were just using to kind of paint in the middle. We're going to start pulling these lines up. Start painting in some more of these values. And like I said, we're going to kind of get lighter as we get to the top. Colors were getting a little too close there, so I just added a little more baby pink. And then we're going to start differentiating it's all kind of starting to blend together here. We're going to start differentiating the highlights at the top, and that's really going to help designate our sections. So I'm going to grab some white. And I'm going to mix a little bit of pink into the white so I don't have just straight white. It'll be a little more subtle that way. Got about half and half. Let's see how that looks. You can see I've got a ton of paint in my brush, so I don't want to have that much paint when I go ahead and put it on my canvas. I want to be more in control than that, so I'm going to rinse it off and start fresh. Get all that water out and pick up this light pink because I'm going to start painting in these little details. So we're going to go right under these little scallop shapes we made at the top to designate the little fluted areas. And we're going to pull those down. And we want this part to go into the middle of where we made our darkest areas. Because think about it. If this was a real cupcake holder, the shadows would be on the parts that are low, and the highlights would be on the parts that are high. So they're going to be opposite, and that's what's going to give you that accordion effect.
You said it's not real? Could have fooled me. You got a couple questions here, Jessie.
Sure.
Some folks kind of coming in here in the middle. What materials are you using for this project?
So I am painting on a canvas panel, but this original one's on a canvas, so whatever you've got at home is great. You can use paper, whatever you've got. And I'm also using our FolkArt acrylic paints. So if you haven't used FolkArt acrylic paint, it is the richest and creamiest and most opaque craft paint you can get, so highly recommend it. The kit we're using tonight is our Let's Paint Live kit. So you can go to plaidonline.com and find that. It's a really great value. It comes with 24 colors and a brush pack, so you can paint any of these monthly paint nights we do. You can paint along with that kit. And then, like I said, I'm using the brushes from the brush kit, and then I've just got all of my, brush cleaning supplies over here to kind of keep us going.
All right. And what size canvas?
This is a 7x7 canvas.
Okay.
So I'm just sort of blending this down, smoothing it out a little. I'm still using my liner brush. So I'm going to go back to that medium pink color I was using and start sort of meeting those two in the middle.
I have a question. This is from me personally. Is that berry wine? Is that your darkest value you're using?
Good question. The berry wine is the darkest value.
Okay.
And then this light pink, excuse me, is going to be our lightest value.
Okay.
And then everything in the middle just to blend it together.
Yeah, because in that finished version, it's like...
It's very dark.
It looks very dark.
Yeah. So we're going to go back when this is dry and even make those shadows even darker. Right now, we're just blending it together.
We got someone in the chat tuning in from New York.
Hello. Thanks
Howdy.
for joining us.
If there's anyone else in the chat who want to shout out where you're from, maybe can figure out who's tuning in from the furthest away.
Yeah, that's fun.
We are on the East Coast in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
Let us know.
Okay. So now I think I'm going to go ahead. It's blended pretty well. I could blend it a little more, I guess, in some areas, but I want to really crisp up this area. And so I'm going to dry it, I think, and then I'm going to add in some of the straight berry wine, kind of like Harrison was just saying, to really crisp up some of these details. I'm going to grab my hairdryer and go ahead and dry it. So I'm going to grab my same small brush. I'm going to pick up some berry wine. I'm going to get some more on my palette, actually. Pick up some of this berry wine, and we're going to go down, and we're going to really clean up the bottom here so you can see just how dark it is. I'm just going along that original line, making it really as dark as we can get it. And then we're going to go into some of the fluted areas too, to really define those into those shadows we made to start. And then some more of that shadow. See how it's really starting to define it.
That is, yeah, that is coming together. A whole picture.
Wait do we get to the frosting?
Oh boy. I can't wait.
Stick around.
We got folks tuning in from all over.
Cool.
Louisiana, California might be the farthest so far. Utah.
It's early in California.
Oh yeah. Tennessee, Idaho, Missouri.
Awesome. Welcome, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Okay. So we can go ahead and we can clean up the top a little bit too if we want. So I'll pick up a little bit more of this pink. I might add a little more red into it actually. We can add some of that. Crisp up some of these highlights at the top now. Okay. So that is pretty much it for, I could continue working on it forever and mess with it, but that's pretty much it for the cupcake holder. So now we can go ahead and we can start sort of mapping out our frosting. So we have a lot of frosting on our cupcake. We're going to do it the same way that we did our base, where we kind of, mark where we want it to end. So I'm going to grab, I still have my small brush. I just cleaned it off. I'm going to pick up some of my wicker white. You can water it down again if you want. That just makes it way easier to paint over if you make a mistake in the sort of sketching and mapping process. So I've got some watered down white on here. I'm going to mark, where I want my frosting to sit on my cupcake. So, however you want your frosting to be is totally fine. Everybody likes their cupcakes differently. I'm going to have mine sort of just dolloped straight in the middle, so it's going to come in a little bit from the sides. It's not going to go all the way to the sides. And then it's going to be a good 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the cupcake liner. So I'm going to end it about, let's say about there. That's where I'm kind of going to make my frosting. And then you can sort of map that out if you want. I would really water your paint down if you're going to do that, just because you want it to be really light, just enough to see, but so you can paint over it really easily. It's going to kind of be our frosting dollop.
Jessie, would you be able to lift the canvas up
Yeah.
to show the details when you get it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So there we go.
All right.
Our invisible frosting dome at the top.
That's it. It's done.
Yeah. There it is for TikTok.
Okay.
So you guys can get a good close-up.
Great framing. You got it in both.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so now we can start painting in our frosting. So I'm kind of just going to, I've got some white on my palette, but I'm going to put some more clean white because there's some pink in there. And we are going to use our round brush for this part. So I love a round brush. This is a number 12 round. It's the biggest one that we make in the FolkArt line. So I'm going to pick up some white on this and kind of work it into my brush. And I'm kind of going to almost in my mind, pipe it out, but with my brush. I know that sounds really confusing, but I want to go with just how you would pipe the frosting, and that way we'll kind of get that, piled up look. That's how I do it in my head anyway. So to start at the bottom, something to remember when you're using any brush, but especially when you're using a round brush, is it's all about pressure. So if you put doesn't matter the size of the brush, if you put a little bit of pressure, you're going to get a thin line. If you put a lot of pressure, you're going to get a thick line. And that's how it is every time. It doesn't matter what size round brush you're using. You really can get any thickness of line you want depending on what type of pressure you're putting on the brush. So I'm going to start with the little tail of the frosting here. I'm going to put just a little bit of pressure, and then I'm going to put more pressure as I go, and watch how fat that line gets. See, that was the same brush. I just varied the pressure, and I got that tiny line and that big line there. So we're going to kind of use that to our advantage when making this big fluffy frosting. So that's kind of the bottom of the frosting. I'm going to do sort of the layer on top of that. And this one's it doesn't really get thin, so it's a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to go straight over the top of that one. putting a good bit of pressure on it so I get a nice thick line. And then I'm going to do another line on top of that. And you can see how you really get that like piled, piped frosting look. And then another one at the very top. And you can see it already is starting to look like frosting. We're going to add in some shadows just to make it look like it's really dimensional, but it's already starting to look like frosting. I'll make sure my white is nice and opaque. Just paint over it a little bit. Turn it a little so it come from this side. It's wanting to end and get a little thin there, so I'll do it the opposite way now too. And it's already looking good. So now that I've got like my base shape sort of blocked in, I'm going to go ahead and dry it just to sort of protect that, and then we can add some wet paint on top of it and start adding in some of these pretty blue shadows.
I don't even know if you need the shadows. People are already saying,
there you go.
Great. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dry it real quick. So that should be dry enough. So now I'm going to go back to my smaller brush here, my liner brush we're using for the cupcake holder. And I'm going to start with sort of a medium tone. So I've kind of got 3 tones really going. It's the white, it's this medium, pale blue, and then it's the darkest blue, which really isn't even that dark, but it's the darkest blue we use on here to look like, a shadow on white. So what I use for that, of course, is my French blue here, the same one we blended into the background. So I'm going to grab some French blue and some white and mix it together. I'm going to start with a 1-to-1 ratio and we'll see what we get. A little more white. We're looking for this middle shade here. A little more white. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So again, I've got a ton of paint on my brush. It's way too much to put on the canvas. You'll have no control over where it goes. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to rinse it out. Make sure you get all the water out. And then I'm going to pick up some fresh, that light blue we just mixed, and we're going to start distinguishing the layers of the frosting. So we can see here, we kind of have it in like that swirly shape. So we really did it already with our brush. That's how we laid the color out. So we're just going to kind of follow that. We're going to go along the bottom edge of each of those lines that we already did. So you can make it a little swirlier too to make it feel like it's a little more shapely if you want. And then we're going to go up around the right because the shadow is on the right side of our cupcake. So we're following the edge of the white on the bottom, up and around the right side. We're following the white. So you want to make sure all the white on the edge gets covered up with this blue. And we'll go up to the next row and do the same thing. Go all the way up and around the right side. Make sure you're covering that white. And again, guys, keep in mind that this is also a round brush, so depending on the amount of pressure you put, just like the one we were just doing, you can get thick lines and you can get thin lines. It just depends on the pressure. Following the bottom of this layer and going up around the right side. And the same thing for the top. And then you can see I added a little bit on the left side too, just to kind of define it, to make sure you can kind of see those layers over there too. Just on the bottom parts. Okay, so it's really starting to look frosting-y now.
I'll say. Where do you learn how to paint like that?
School. We were talking about student loans earlier. That's how I learned how to paint. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the darkest color we're going to be using, which is just the straight French blue. And we're going to go on the same blue we just made, but on the very bottom of that blue. So just how we were, you know, painting on the white, but on the bottom, now we're painting smaller on the blue, but on the bottom of the blue, if that makes sense. So I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I'm going on this blue, and I'm following that bottom line, and this is the darkest color we've got, so up around the right. You don't want to cover up the blue we just did, but just sort of follow that edge to give it a little bit darker of a shadow. Do it on all the blue.
It's like a magic trick.
Magic, see? Now we have frosting. Kind of looks like marshmallow.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Okay, so now we can go in and we just want to paint this with berry wine to get that, like we were talking about earlier, the red velvet cupcake color. So now you can, you know, we can kind of see that it's got a little bit soft there with those scallop shapes we made. Now you can go in and really define that and get that like pretty scalloped shape again and kind of clear some of that up. So I'm using my berry wine and I'm just, again, following that shape. I'm not making a new one. I'm just making sure that that shape stays nice and crisp. And again, it's just straight berry wine on my brush. I've got my smallest round brush here, and I'm just following that shape. And then you want to go right under the frosting too. You don't want to cover it. You want to try to just butt up right to it so we can keep that pretty frosting shape we made. And we could have painted the berry wine first. It would have just been a little bit harder to cover up with the white, so this one's easier to just kind of add it back later. And then fill that in.
Wow, yeah. I've said that a couple times, but it just keeps coming together every step.
Glad to hear it. It would stink if it didn't.
Someone in the chat saying I might have to bake tonight now.
They're making you crave some baked goods. That's awesome. Okay, so now our cupcake is almost done. We just want to add the fun parts, which are the candy and the sprinkles. So for the candy heart, I'm going to use Dutch Aqua, which is in the kit. It's this pretty mint color, but it's just, you know, a conversation heart, so you can make your conversation heart any color you want. It can be purple or yellow or whatever you're feeling. I'm going to grab my small brush, and we're just going to simply paint in a heart shape. It's going to kind of be overlapping a little bit, so it looks like it's kind of, you know, smushed into the frosting, how it would be in real life. I've got it a little tilted, so I'm going to paint my heart. Like I said, it's going to overlap a little bit. Oh, that's very tilted. Might be too tilted. Let's see if we can fix that. And then we're going to fill it in. I've got my heart painted in there, and then we're going to use a little bit of berry wine to shade that, because, you know, of course the candy hearts are dimensional, so we want to give it some sides. So I just rinsed my brush off, picked up a little berry wine, and you guys are experts at shading now, so we're going to kind of just go around the right side a little bit, make it look like it's 3D. It's okay if it blends in with the green a little. It'll make it look even more like a shadow because it'll look like a dark green if that happens. And then a little bit on the part here where you would see that side sort of coming down. Make sure you give that a little shadow too. It just makes it look a little more dimensional. And then you can use the same color to paint the Be Mine. You can also dry it and use a marker if you want. It's very tiny, so it's totally up to you. You can use a pen or something, a paint pen if you got it at home. But I'm gonna go ahead and use my brush. I just cleaned off my liner brush. I want it to be very sharp at the tip. So I'm pinching with my finger because I want to get that super sharp tip so I can get the tiny little lines of those letters. So I'm going to write Be Mine. You can write whatever message you want on your candy heart. Totally up to you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do they have to do Be
Definitely
Mine?
not. You can do a name on there. You can do a message. You can just do a different candy heart saying, it is your cupcake. You can do whatever you want. You don't even have to write on it if you don't want to.
Yeah, some of the other popular ones are XOXO,
Cute.
My Love,
Aw.
You Rock, Marry Me.
Aw, cute. I love that.
You got lots of options.
Yes, so many options. Okay, so now the last, oh no, I'm sorry, not the last step, second to last step. The next step we're gonna do is the sprinkles. So we just wanna get this cute pink color. So to do that, I'm going to grab some of my cardinal red and some white to just lighten it up a little bit. You could use baby pink, but it's just really light. I wanted mine to be a little bit darker than that, like a medium pink. And I'm gonna rinse my brush off once I get the color I want and start fresh again because I wanna get some nice thin lines for those sprinkles. And you wanna make the sprinkles really random. You know, you want it to look like they're sprinkled, of course. So kind of, you know, think about doing them in all different directions. Try to get them all a similar length just so they feel like real sprinkles. But other than that, you can really put them wherever you wanna put them. Just again, keeping in mind, keep them a similar length. You know, keep them in random directions, and they're gonna look like sprinkles no matter what you do. You can do different colored sprinkles if you want. If you're a rainbow sprinkle kind of person, go for it. All right, and then the last step of the painting is to add this shadow. So we've added shadows all over our painting, but this is something that's called grounding it. So since we don't really have it sit in a setting, it's just kind of this like painted background. It just looks like it's this cupcake floating in nowhere in space. So we want to add that shadow to make it look like it's actually sitting somewhere. So to do that, I'm going to mix some of my, I'm going to grab my small flat brush, mix some of my French blue and a little bit of berry wine to get kind of that purpley color. It's like a gray purple, which is perfect for a shadow. Okay. So to make the shadow, I'm going to come out from the right side. You can see it's just kind of like an oval. Imagine it's a whole oval, but part of it is under the cupcake. So if you'd imagine it that way, it might be a little easier to sort of map out in your mind. Imagine it goes behind here. It's a really thin oval that takes up the whole thing. It just extends past it a little. So if you want to mark it out, you know, with a pencil or something first, feel free to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to use my flat brush. I'm going to start on the left side, and I'm going to follow my cupcake bottom. Go past it a little, and then I'm going to connect that oval over here. And I'm using the edge of my brush to get that line.
As you're coming up on the end of this here, you're getting lots of compliments, people saying how cute it looks and thanking you for teaching.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. This was a really fun one to do. I love the themed paintings. You guys probably have noticed that. I always come back to do, you know, the pumpkins and the ornaments and things like that. So I love a seasonal painting. So this one's a really fun one to make. I had a lot of fun doing it. And that is our shadow. I appreciate you guys tuning in so much. We do this, like I said, on TikTok and Facebook. the first Thursday of every single month. So make sure you join us. It's at 7:30 Eastern time. We do lots of fun seasonal paintings. It's always just about an hour, and it's always really beginner friendly. So these classes are, free to join. Buy the kit, and you can paint along with us. You can use paint you've got at home. You can use whatever you want to use, but we just love to have you guys join and paint with us. So next month, it's going to be Kirsten Jones, and she's going to be here painting a really cute bouquet of clovers. So the first Thursday of March, Kirsten Jones will be here, like I said, 7:30 Eastern time, to paint some really cute lucky clovers that are fun for St. Patrick's Day. So guys, thanks so much for joining. Don't forget to sign your painting when you're done, because you have this beautiful work of art. You should be proud, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.